I joined Gilbarco Veeder-Root when I was 12 years old. So it's just been a tremendous journey, for sure.
What do you like most about petroleum retail?
The industry, people.
What do you dislike most about petroleum retail?
Industry, people.
What was the most powerful learning that you've got?
Great opportunity to drive a lot of growth that we had at the time. I don't take every piece of perspective I get. Concept behind Konekt is putting that whole ecosystem together. And I think really what we're trying to do is make that transition much easier. There are fast ways to decarbonise plan. The future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed.
Welcome to the next episode of R.O.O.F podcast. We're still at Unity Expo 2024, exciting show. And my guest today is Dave Coombe, President of Fuel Solutions at Gilbarco Veeder-Root. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Ilia. Hey, thanks for having me on, by the way, as well. It's nice to make the cut finally.
Yeah, I was waiting for this moment for a long time. Today we'll talk about various things. I think we'll reflect a little bit on the Unity Expo 2024, exciting event. We'll talk about the launch of Konekt as well, because I think everyone has a lot of questions. As usual, prepared a lot of games to talk about. And I would also like to get a bit more of a personal side of Dave Coombe, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And maybe ask some questions about your leadership style and your journey, let's say, in the last 20 years.
Yeah, wonderful.
By the way, I've learned that literally this month is your 20th anniversary in Gilbarco Veeder-Root.
That's correct, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I grew up in Gilbarco Veeder-Root. So it's been a tremendous journey, 20 years. Actually, the 17th of May is the 20-year marker for me. But it's been just a wonderful journey. So many great experiences, learning experiences that the company's provided me, the industry's provided me. So it's great. I can't believe it's been 20 years either, to be fair. I keep telling people that I joined Gilbarco Veeder-Root when I was 12 years old. So it's just been a tremendous journey, for sure. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to learn about your journey and what was the biggest, learnings within this journey.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's start. All right, it's time for our first challenge, 24/7.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, 24 seconds, 7 questions. Super fast, super quick. We've got the best score so far, about around 20 seconds. So, Dave, do you believe you can beat that?
I'd like to think I can beat it. I'm getting a little bit older these days, so I may be a bit slower in process.
No, but you said you're like 20 years ago, you were 12.
12. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Manned or unmanned?
Manned. Cash
Cash or cashless?
Cashless.
What do you like most about petroleum retail?
The industry, people.
What do you dislike most about petroleum retail?
Industry, people.
What's your superpower?
Servant leadership.
Describe Unity Expo in one word.
A great chance to connect.
Rugby or football?
Rugby.
No way.
That was pretty good.
18.9 is that?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that was fast.
So, that's the last episode of this show.
Although I screwed up the one-word answer that you gave me, which I can't remember the question. It was Unity in one word, and I used about 4 words to describe it.
Ah, man.
So some work to do there.
Yeah, some work to do.
Yeah. So I could have shaved some time out there. Actually, if I got just to the one-word response that you asked for, it would probably have been maybe 17 something. That's pretty good.
Well,
yeah.
So rugby.
Yes.
Still rugby. So you played yourself rugby, I know.
Yeah, I actually only stopped playing probably about 4 years ago, and I'm far too old to be playing. But just a great team sport, which is why I kind of enjoyed it as a game. The camaraderie you get with working in a team, that was the kind of exciting thing for me from a rugby perspective. There's a lot of life lessons that I got from rugby that helped me in business and working and driving teams across our business as well. It's just been a great experience. I love rugby. I'm a rugby nut, so we could probably go on for about 4 hours here talking about rugby. But
the good thing is I don't know anything about rugby, not even the rules. So
I've played it probably over 30 odd years of my life, and I still don't know the rules. So,
All right, so that was 24/7 challenge with Dave Coombe. Gilbarco Veeder-Root has launched a Konekt at Unity these days.
Yeah.
So can you tell a bit more about the concept and what do we actually mean by this new brand?
Yeah, so Konekt's a solution and a product that we're trying to take to the market for our customers. And I think based on a lot of listening that we've done to our customers or with our customers. If I think of our customers as roadside retailers, I know we sometimes talk to them about fuel retailers or what have you. And they're roadside retailers that happens to sell either kind of liquid fuels or as we shift into the future, EV as well. And I think one of the challenges we've seen from that journey as the world tries to transform, how our energy's used and dispensed, particularly in mobility and whatnot. It's been a challenge for a lot of our customers to solve in getting that network built out. And there's a lot to that. It's not just a simple case of say, I need a charger to provide a charging solution to the customer. Being able to connect to the grid in there is a challenge in its own right. Being able to connect then a charger to the customer's vehicles, an experience in itself as well, making sure that that connection takes place. But then even the customer experience on site. A lot of retailers that I talk to today talk about, hey, a lot of those EV customers, I may have some EV charging facilities available on my site, but I actually don't know those customers. I'm not connected to them from a loyalty perspective. I don't see the payment application. I actually don't see the transactions are very different on the C store there as well. And so the concept behind Konekt is putting that whole ecosystem together, then actually physically rolling out to the site, the turnkey solution that you need, and then the ongoing support to that and the software solutions that wrap all around that piece is the concept behind Konekt. And I think really what we're trying to do is make that transition much easier for our customers to be a part of, to kind of leverage the solutions that we've got, whether it be I need the full turnkey solution in terms of, hey, I need to be able to connect to the grid, I need battery storage, I need a charger, I need the payment ecosystem that fully integrates into that solution, I need the ongoing support, I want to be able to connect to a network. The concept behind Konekt is around how do we connect all of that together.
Yeah, I think it feels like it's a big problem these days for retailers.
It is.
Because as you said, the consumer experience is completely different.
Sure.
I also experienced it myself with a range anxiety and, a painful process to pay for electric vehicle charging and all those things. So you need to have a dedicated wallet. But then also, I think the biggest problem is for the retailer perspective, how not to give away your customer. Because if the share of EV will grow, then the whole loyalty, the whole attention will kind of switch towards EV, e-fuels, and e-service, e-mobility service. So how to sustain the customer? That's the problem. So I think, is that the last missing piece of the puzzle from your perspective?
Yeah, and it's about how we pull that together for our customers. Make that easy to navigate. If you're going to go to the US, you've got a lot of funding going on, government grants, etc. Our premise behind that solution is we're trying to make that as easy as we can for roadside retailers. We'll manage that completely for you, or you can select whatever segment you need help with. We're happy to support. And obviously, there's still the key hardware infrastructure is an important part of that, but the connection on the software side is also incredibly important. To that point about making sure the customer experience is the same as if you're buying fuel or you're in a C store buying goods, or if you're buying charging. It's got to be that same customer experience, that a customer experience that our customers are able to own and make sure they can control.
So how do you see Gilbarco Veeder-Root in 10 years from now?
Hey, I think I think we're like I say, energy transition is taking place. That's the goal there is about how do we decarbonize the planet faster. There's multiple ways to decarbonize the planet for sure. If I look at the solutions that we provide, even in the oil and gas arena today, even with the technology around biofuels and so forth, they're fast ways to decarbonize the planet. I think we've got to do that still, as well as build that future infrastructure out for electrification or hydrogen or CNG or whatever that fueling solution or energy solution looks like for the future. So actually, it will change. It'll be much more of a mixed energy future in there. I think it will take a time for the real dominance of whatever energy source really plays out over time. EV is going to clearly be a big portion of that for the future, no doubt about it.
It's already there, more or less.
It's already there. But infrastructure is still taking its time to build out. It's not a simple process to get the connections to the grid. The cost of that infrastructure is a challenge for a lot of retailers. And, we did a similar experience at Vontier with Mark Morelli, the CEO, and a lot of the Vontier leadership team. We went on and did a road trip in the US, and that range anxiety was real. I mean, we got down to about 2% battery at one stage, traveling down the highway. It was a hairy moment.
So you'll have to push the car yourself.
I had to push the car myself, and I was actually quite excited about that range anxiety. I was kind of like, come on, we can get a little bit further. But I mean, they're real issues, and so that infrastructure is going to take some time to build out. But at the same time, while that infrastructure is taking time to build out, decarbonisation is an important environmental challenge for everyone around the globe. So how can we better accelerate that? Biofuels, a key way to do that. Carbon neutral fuels, certainly a way to do that. In there, hydrogen, certainly a way to do that. So I think it's going to be a mixed energy future. And I think the great thing is about our business, both with Gilbarco Veeder-Root and Vontier, is that I think we play in that whole energy space today and are able to provide those future solutions. And so I think a great quote, and I'm going to quote Henry Armour at NACS in there: the future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed.
Yeah,
and I think that's very true in a number of markets worldwide. You look at Latin America, very big ethanol market. They've got access to ethanol production. They're like no other continent in there. So will EV play out there? Probably not to the pace it will in Europe and so forth. So that distribution around air energy is going to look in the future. I think it's going to change. We know that. That's the one thing we do know. It's going to change in there. But I think we're well positioned to capitalize on that.
And not only just see the change, but lead the change. I think that's the point.
Absolutely.
All right, time for our next game.
Right.
So I've Googled 5 different questions, most asked questions about Gilbarco Veeder-Root in the internet. And I would like to have your perspective on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never Googled that myself. I probably should have done before coming in here. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah. Question number 1. What does Gilbarco Veeder-Root do?
Well, that's a great question. Probably more what we don't do in some respects. Hey, I think for Gilbarco Veeder-Root, we're part of the mobility ecosystem. We have been for many years in now. So providing or enabling transportation around the world for many years in very different forms as it's kind of arrived into our marketplace. I mean, interesting fact, maybe a bit of a bore fest, but Veeder-Root actually started off making cyclometers. So it would measure how far people would have traveled and so forth. So Veeder-Root being part of the company that counts, and that's where then the measurement kind of come into it, measuring fueling tanks it evolved into, and carved out a very successful space there. So we've always been involved for many, many years around mobility.
I guess another way to answer this question is just making our customers happy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Second question, who owns Gilbarco Veeder-Root?
So our company is owned by Vontier. Vontier is a public company. The business has grown up through a number of acquisitions over the years to Danaher, Fortive, more recently, and now Vontier.
So what's your take on those changes or in terms of the ownership in the last 5 to 7 years?
Hey, I think it's a great question, by the way. That's a great question. That wasn't one that was Googled, I'm sure.
No, but that was mine, by the way. Please
it's your
note it down.
Ilia's question. Hey, I think actually all of the transitions have been actually really positive for our business. So with Danaher, just the kind of the methodology, the kind of lean focus that they brought to the business system to really drive the efficiency and optimize that, really looking after the customer. The core focus for Danaher was quality delivery, cost and innovation in their QDCI. And that was actually centered around the customer. So there was a lot of focus from a Danaher perspective on making sure the customer gets the products and solutions they need, the highest quality product delivered on time at the best possible cost, not necessarily price, but best possible cost, and really focus on that innovation. So that was actually a great learning experience for Danaher, and I think that shaped the business pretty well. I think under Fortive, again, actually more focus on being lean and agile. How do you go faster? Really shrinking down time to value or concept to cash, whatever way you want to describe that. So I think that's been a great experience as well under Fortive. And then more recently, under Vontier, I think actually now the focus is on the mobility ecosystem. We've got a set of businesses that are all geared up around supporting that. And there's so much synergy between those different groups and the technology that we're able to leverage across those groups. I actually think it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah.
On top of that, coupled with the transformation that the industry and the space is in from a energy transformation perspective.
Yeah. My personal take on this is I think every time requires different type of configuration of the business, different type of leadership style, etc. Sure. And I think if I look back into 10 years ago, I think I mean, we are in the place where we are, and we should have been, right?
Sure.
But now the level of the challenge that the industry has is so high that we have to be much more agile. We have to be much more, experimenting with different things and concepts, and looking into different segments and help our customers as well. So I think it's all about like timing, and I think we're timing pretty well from that perspective.
100%.
All right. So question number 3: what is the history of Gilbarco Veeder-Root?
Well, it goes back, it's over 150 years. So Gilbarco, which was Gilbert and Barker, as most people may not know, but Gilbert and Barker to form Gilbarco wasn't a great branding story at the time, but kind of started in 1865. Very much focused on oil lamps and so forth is where the technology kind of started there. Veeder-Root was a little bit later, 1866, so not much later in there. The Veeder part of the business was very much focused on things like cyclometers and so forth. It really kind of focused in on counting technology, and some really interesting history with Veeder-Root. Period of time we were making cyclometers for bicycles. Then we kind of got into mechanical meters. We did voting machines at one stage. If anyone's interested about that in the US, they made a ton of voting machines to actually register people's votes in there. Before kind of transitioning really heavily then into measurement of fuel in underground storage tanks, which is where it's carved out of space today. But plays a tremendous role in a number of markets and adjacent markets and industries in there, as from your Fafnir days here as well in terms of background there. Gilbarco very much focused in on the evolution of fueling vehicles and so forth, and broaden that into the C-stores. The C-stores started to evolve. We talk about kind of the car centers and so forth, that where traditional fueling may have started, kind of then into smokes and cokes, now into this enterprise around supporting the whole C-store ecosystem in there. So tremendous history, a lot of experience in that time. I think actually now we're talking about what's next for the next 150 years, and how do we carve out that space. So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
The fun fact I know about the history of Gilbarco Veeder-Root, Mr. Sir Hiram Maxim, who is the inventor of a Maxim machine gun that was used in the First World War, used to be a consultant in Gilbarco Veeder-Root.
Right. I didn't know that. I've learned something new today.
What's even more exciting, he was the inventor of the mousetrap. So innovation since 1865.
Yeah, tremendous amount of innovation actually over that time. I mean, it's been a ton of innovation. If you look at what we've done, and actually what's great, if you ever visit the offices in our headquarters in Greensboro, North Carolina, some of the technical drawings that we've got up on the wall, actually for heating systems, through to fuel dispensing, some great stuff that goes all the way back to the early 1900s in there. So,
wow. The next one, Gilbarco Veeder-Root India salary.
That's a great question. I'm not sure I've got the facts with me to support all of that in there. Hey, India's a core market for us. We do a lot out of India, both from a customer perspective and the customers we serve there. But actually, we got a lot of R&D activity there. We got a lot of factory capability that we do in our India facility that serves all parts of the world. It's actually a very core market for us. So we're present Coimbatore, Bangalore, in Mumbai. In there, and obviously an incredible service network in the India market there as well, serving our customers. So it's a core market for us for sure.
Yeah. So the answer is it depends.
It depends. Yeah.
On various factors.
Yeah.
Final one. Gilbarco Veeder-Root logo.
So logo. If you kind of go back, the Gilbarco had a very distinct logo. Before it was a blue logo in kind of a pretty much like we do Gilbert's food code. We sometimes use it for the C-store in there, but very much in that italic blue. And then Veeder-Root had a very interesting V over the R old logo in there. The logo has changed. Actually, the current logo that we got for Gilbarco Veeder-Root changed probably around 2005 timeframe. Probably not so long after the acquisitions that took place. So Danaher acquired Veeder-Root way before, back in the 90s, and then Gilbarco was acquired in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002. And so the logo originated at that particular point for the current logo. I actually quite like the logo, but that's probably because I've been with the business 20 years. And
you get used to that.
You get used to it and so forth.
Like Stockholm Syndrome.
Stockholm Syndrome, yeah, absolutely. But we're going to continue to evolve. I wouldn't be surprised over time whether we'll see a change that logo here in the future for sure. Yeah.
Perfect. So Dave, as we discussed, you've been in Gilbarco Veeder-Root for a long time. So in the last 20 years, what was the most powerful learning that you've got within your career in Gilbarco Veeder-Root?
It's a great question, Ilia. When I kind of reflect back, there was probably a couple of roles for me that were really important that I did during my time. And the first one was working with VBS as we know it now, the Frontier Business System, really a lot around the lean methodology. And for a period of time, quite early on in my career, after I'd joined, I've been with the business about 2 years, got into what was VBS at that time, driving lean methodology across all parts of our business. And it just really gave me a lot of exposure to not just core operations, but finance, HR, sales, commercialization and whatnot. So that was a real great learning experience. Also, a really fantastic role because the core to that was about continuous improvement. And my sole mission in that role was, how do I make this business better than it was yesterday? And I think that methodology of continuous improvement, how do we be better than it was yesterday, was just a core piece. And not that that's not my job today as well. Core, that's part of my job as president for Gilbarco Veeder-Root now as well. But just that dedication on time of looking at how we could improve things. So that was a real key pivotal moment for me from a career perspective. I think the next big role that I did, again from a learning experience perspective, was actually an acquisition that we made, which was Autotank back in 2008, and it took me up into out of the UK at that time. I kind of lived in Stockholm, in Sweden. Great experience, great people in our payment business, which is where I first really kind of understood payment. There, the people I work with will tell you I don't understand payment still, but it was a great learning experience there from a cultural perspective, but also just seeing how you could transform a business there as well. And I think we did, and we a great opportunity to drive a lot of growth that we had at the time. And that was just a key learning experience. I learned a lot about myself, what I wasn't good at in there, exposed a lot of weaknesses that kind of brought it home to me where I need to focus in on. So they were probably the two really big key learning experiences early on in my career that actually set me up for a lot more growth down the road. And so they've been a tremendous experience now to kind of lead our businesses in Europe, lead our businesses in Veeder-Root, which I did for a number of years in the US, and now running all of Gilbarco Veeder-Root globally has just been a tremendous learning experience. And I think the people connections, we've got some wonderful people that work in our organization and in our industry as well. I think
this is something that all the time, episode to episode, we talk about people, right? Yeah. Because industry, is formed by people.
Sure.
And I see like a great community here. And my first unit experience, I don't know, like 8 years ago, probably, I was browsing through the hall and I was like, okay, who are those people? I don't know anyone. Now I'm going through the hall and I was like, hey, what's up? Hello. So I just, when you get connected to those people and you become a part of the kind of a family in a way, regardless, about the competition or something, because we have still one goal, right? And part of the disruption that happens these days, we all feel responsible for the energy transition that can dramatically change the way, humans live, right? In general.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a great piece. This ecosystem that we're all a part of here. It's just a wonderful ecosystem, and one that's on the precipice, probably already past that point of that transformation of what's taking place in our space. And I think it's actually wonderful to see how organizations within our ecosystem are innovating and driving and supporting that change. So it's actually a really tremendous time to be in the industry for sure.
Yeah. So coming back to your style and your journey, so what helped you to form your leadership style?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, again, I come back to early on in the career on VBS in there, and the premise of VBS, if folks wouldn't know what we're talking about when we talk VBS in there, it's really the business system, but it's actually the essence of that is in continuous improvement. And to be able to continually improve, you've got to be pretty humble, right? That's I look to myself first to say, hey, what do I need to do better? It's not about saying, hey, what do all these teams within our organization need to do better? Or how do we need to make this process better? You've got to start with yourself.
This is tough.
And it's tough. It's tough. And I learned a lot. I broke, in that, when I did that VBS role for a period of time, we did a lot of stuff, real great stuff, like transformative impact to the business during that time. So I was really lucky to be a part of that. But I also did a lot of stuff that wasn't so good in there. Didn't have the end outcome that I was anticipating, or we didn't hit the result that I was anticipating. And there was a lot of learnings that really come back for me. So there's a piece that comes back down to, you've got to have humility from a leadership perspective to be able to look at yourself and say, hey, how do I do better? How can I get better? How can I get better? And if I expect that of other people, I can't expect that and not look to myself first. So I think that was a core part from a leadership perspective in there for me. I also think that the other key part was just actually spending time listening to people, actively listening. I know sometimes we say, hey, we listened. We may hear sometimes, but to actually actively listen, I think it's just an important part of my learning experience. There's been lots of times when I didn't listen to people, and actually, you know what, the outcomes were never as good. And I think when I've spent that time actively listening to our people, to our customers, or whoever it is we're interacting with, I think that's where a lot has helped me over the years from that perspective. And then just I wouldn't expect any of our team to do anything I wouldn't be prepared to do myself as well. I think, again, just making those connections with people across all parts of our business, at all levels of our business, has just been an incredibly important part of the journey. And I think that's really helped me from a leadership style perspective to kind of actively engage, make those connections with all of our people across the business and in the industry in there as well. It's been pretty important.
Do you think leadership is a skill? Can you learn leadership? Or is it something that you either have or you don't have?
Yeah, I think it can still be a learned skill. I don't think people are just naturally born leaders. I think sometimes there's times when you kind of take the lead, or you kind of naturally take the lead in there. I think rugby was a big influence on my in that perspective for me as well, because you have to, in rugby, for those that aren't familiar, you have to put your head in some pretty horrible places from some time. And I always say I used to be a good-looking guy before I started playing rugby, but neither of those are true. There's that requires leadership sometimes, to put your body on the line, to kind of run out and make that big hit, that big tackle, and it's going to hurt. I think for me that's kind of been a part of how I've developed some of those leadership skills. But I think definitely think is a skill that can be learned in there. But I think there's keys to it: actively listening. Take your ego out of it. That's why I think that humility piece is just a key part to being a successful leader.
Mm-hmm. And when you try to develop some kind of a skills, also coaching is really important, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So what we always talk about the best advices that everyone gave to you, but what I'm willing to ask, what's the worst advice that you were ever given by someone?
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. The worst advice, because I think most advice is still pretty useful. It's still somebody else's different perspective on it. That's a very political response back. Sometimes on the advice stuff, I got some advice once as a leader, where I used to actually like to sit in the office with folks, not have a separate office, and there was a push to say, hey, you need to, you're leading this part of the business, you need to be in an office. And I was like, well, actually, no, that was bad advice. I don't think that's good. I think it takes away that connection from people and being open and approachable in there. So that was probably some bad advice that I got during my career. Other than that, has there been a lot of bad advice? Probably not. I think it comes back down to making sure you're actively listening and make sure you take that perspective. I don't take every piece of perspective I get. That's about trying to triangulate, the right answers in that respect. So yeah, that was a really political response. I think I just gave you there. Ilia, I dodged that one. I'm not sure.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
So Dave, thank you very much. That was exciting. Learned a lot, all the lessons, and maybe we'll do it another day.
That'd be great. I really appreciate you having me on. So great to spend some time with you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
And see you in the next episode.
Yeah.